This is going to be a lovely tutorial series about basic haircutting, foundational skills that will allow you to take any picture a client shows you and recreate it every time she comes in. This is recreating haircuts. This is hitting those landmarks that clients want, such as I want my fringe here, I want my layers here. Just recreate anything you see, project manage the haircut, and hit all the important markers for your clients. I'm going to start the consultation, and we're going to first look at where this hair density is thick or thin or sparse or sporadic, or is it shorter in some areas. So as you're consulting with your client, you want to get your hands in there and you want to notice the density. Typically, people are a little bit thicker up here and their hair is finer here. So we need to think about that if we're wanting to create a solid baseline from back to front, or if we're doing face framing layers. This is important to know. Also, sometimes on really long hair, this area is fine and wispy, or there might be breakage from ponytails. We need to be aware of that if we're trimming, because we don't want to just mindlessly drop this first section and take an inch off of it and then drop the next section and realize that it's a lot longer. So we want to make sure we know the areas that are thicker, the areas that might be a little bit shorter, and the areas that are thinner. All right, now we need to take a look at head shape. So most people's head is quite flat, straight up and down here. So the hair that lives here will just be collapsing, and it's usually perimeter hair, and the layers change quite a bit coming from the round of the head to down here, and you might get a bit of a choppy stacked effect, whereas the layers that originate from the top of the head flow nicely down over it. That also goes for hair below the occipital. This hair just collapses, and any layering you might do in there kind of disappears and gives you kind of like a weird wonky perimeter. So we generally don't layer these two areas simply because the hair falls straight down. It collapses and your layers are lost. So right now we have a beautifully round head shape, which is going to work well for our layering because we utilize the curve of the head to create our different lengths. And fortunately for us, this head is very nice and round. Sometimes people are a little bit flat up here and then they come down here. So we've got to keep that in mind when layering. But right now our client is going to be very easy on us. Another important thing to look at is hairline. So our lovely client here has obviously the perfect hairline because she's been prefabricated, but we have to pay attention to any recision or anything coming out, density differences between the top and the sides really show up with the face frame, and we've got to be aware of that before we start cutting. So careful about the hairline around the front and in the nape. Sometimes the hairline grows up, sideways, down. That'll come into play with the shorter cuts. But with the longer cuts, look for a recision, look for a big density difference. Let's talk about tension and moisture. So you do want to complete your haircut with nice, even tension throughout the whole haircut. And moisture comes into play because wet hair stretches more than dry hair. So if we start out and then the hair is drying as we're completing our haircut, then we want to make sure we're misting it down and keeping a nice, even moisture level, which allows us to have even tension. We want to comb firmly from the scalp all the way up. We want to have good, strong finger tension. We want to have strong fingers. So I don't know if you need to work out a little bit. Strong fingers, good firm combing, all of these things will help us have even tension. You get to choose what your tension is, but we want to make sure it's consistent through the entire haircut. Client head positioning. So this is where you need to be a little bit assertive and you want to coach your client into getting into the right position. So for me, when I'm cutting the back, I do like my client to tilt their head a little forward so I can really get zero elevation, which allows me to have a very clean perimeter with no little wiggly guys poking up. If I'm cutting my perimeter, like let's say the client's head is even like this, and here I think I'm at zero elevation, it's actually not because it's elevated a little bit off the head, and that's just enough to allow these under hairs to be longer and look wiggly and weird. I don't know if anyone's had the situation where their client has gotten up and went, oh, I'm just gonna get my things. They bend, they tilt their head forward, and then you see all those little yucky bits, or you're behind somebody in line. I do see it quite frequently. So zero elevation with the assistance of your client creates a really nice, clean perimeter with none of the wiggly guys. Then as we come over to the sides, it is really nice if your client helps you by tilting their head over. So again, we're not cutting over the shoulder here, which is elevated, like that's nearly 45 degrees. So that's, if we're looking for a clean perimeter on a long haircut, this 45-degree elevation is not gonna give us that. So we do want to ask our clients to tilt, give us a nice clean, straight surface. And then we can bring the front down like that. That's zero elevation. It's very nice and clean. So we do need to pay attention though if a client is, so like let's say we position them, we ask them to get their head down, you comb, you take your first section, and they're like, oh, did I tell you that I'm going to blah, blah, blah next week? And they pop their head up, and then if you're too focused on the back here and you're listening to the story, your perimeter is gonna be like that. So you have to be vigilant that your client, at least for the sections that are below the occipital, keeps their head in the same position and they're not down and then like looking this way. That's going to affect your perimeter. Looking that way is going to affect your perimeter. You want them to just stare at their feet or give them a cue, their purse, whatever, I don't know. Stare at their feet probably for 2 minutes while you do your full perimeter, and then you're good to go. And and then if you're doing the sides, you want to make sure their nose is level. They're not like this on one side and this on another or over there. So you need to just ask them to stay still for a few minutes, and then it's your job to pay attention to that, because we don't want to have that, like if your client is like this on the one side and then like this on the other, your sides are going to look like this. And then, and you know how hard it is to get the sides exactly the same. So you want to set yourself up for success. That is client positioning. Your body positioning as a stylist. So there's a few things that lay a good foundation for consistent results throughout the haircut. And one of them is being square to your section, being present, moving as your section moves around the client. Your day should consist of a lot of shuffling to the left, shuffling to the right, okay? You want to, if you stand in one spot while you're cutting, you're over directing, and whether you want to or not. And if you do one section and then you do another section, then you're like, oh yeah, I should be moving. Then you've over directed, then you're at 90 degrees again. So we really want to have consistent results. We want to know that we've combed the hair to the right position. We want our hands to be nice and level. I like to, wherever possible, I cut horizontally or like parallel with the horizon, vertical, or zero elevation. I give myself good landmarks and I follow them. When I come around to the face frame, I will cut it vertically right in the center of the client's face. And then I do the same on the other side. My first cut of the face frame is almost always vertical, right in this line, and that's just giving me consistency. Then I let it fall, then I personalize it. But your body position can make or break your haircut, and you need to be aware of it. So you cut your first section. As you're cutting your first section, you are paying attention to what you're doing and memorizing it so you can do that exact same thing around the head. Okay, so the client's body positioning, your body positioning, very, very important to consistent results. Let's talk about elevation. So creating the perimeter, we want to cut at 0 elevation, which is straight down, just absolutely straight down. So it's not elevated, it's natural fall or even tucked in against the skin a little bit. So natural fall is 0 degrees elevation, just right here, all the way around. So that is how we usually cut a perimeter and get our baseline going. So on the sides, 0 elevation looks like this. So it's very, very close to the head and it's straight down and we cut. Okay, that's 0 elevation. Layering, and most of my hair cutting is 90 degrees. 90 degrees keeps you away from unwanted weight lines. It's the way to fix everything. So I do like 90 degrees because it utilizes the head shape. The head shape's doing most of the work for you, and it provides really great, seamless, smooth results in a connected and easy to grow out way. A 90-degree haircut grows out beautifully, and clients are like, I've never had a haircut grow out this well. I didn't have any like areas of weirdness after a few weeks. So this is my favorite way to layer. And 90 degrees varies with where you are on the head. So this is 90, this is fully elevated. Now over here, as I go around the head, this is 90, right? Imagine we had a T-square and then 90 comes around with the head shape, and 90 degrees at the sides is about like this. So you just put your comb on the head and wherever it points, like this is 90 degrees. Like the hands of a clock. It's a very round shape and it seamlessly joins your layers with your perimeter. It's a beautiful result. So on this side, like this is 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees. So the thing that happens in the back is this is 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees. When we're cutting long hair, we want to stop here because we don't want to chop into the perimeter and get kind of like weird, yucky results. But if it's shorter, like look what 90 degrees does. 90 degrees just creates graduation. You know, graduation really is just 90-degree cutting in the nape where the head, where it's just following the round of the head. So 90 degrees covers all your bases, and most of your haircuts can be a combination of 0 degrees elevation and 90.